There's something many men never understand about attraction. Women don't always feel desire instantly. What you see as disinterest isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's caution. Sometimes it's curiosity she won't show. And sometimes a woman simply hasn't felt the version of you that could shift her entire perception. Attraction isn't always a spark that appears out of nowhere. For many women, it's a slow reveal, an emotional unfolding triggered by how a man moves, speaks, behaves, and carries himself long before she ever admits she's paying attention. That's why some men struggle. They assume if she doesn't show interest immediately, the story is already over. But they don't understand something essential. Most women don't make their final decision the moment they meet a man. They make it based on who he becomes in front of them. And that's the part almost no one teaches men. How to awaken a woman's attraction even after she seems indifferent. Not through manipulation, not through pretending, but through presence, subtle confidence, emotional steadiness, and the kind of masculinity that makes her feel something she wasn't expecting. Women respond to what they feel, not just what they see, and when a woman senses a man who knows his value, who doesn't chase validation, who communicates calmly, and who shows depth without desperation, everything inside her starts to soften, even if she didn't notice him before. This video is not about forcing desire out of someone who truly isn't available. It's about understanding the psychological triggers that quietly shift how a woman views you, how her mind reassesses you, how her body relaxes around you, how her attention naturally drifts in your direction. Because when a man understands these dynamics, he stops trying to win her over and instead becomes the kind of presence she naturally gravitates toward. And that changes everything. Generational breakdown. Generational breakdown. Attraction has never followed one single rule, but the way men and women approach it has shifted quietly over the years. Not because people changed at their core, but because the world around them did. And these shifts created a misunderstanding that affects how men interpret female interest or what they think is lack of interest. Years ago, a woman's first impression of a man was shaped mostly by real interaction, conversations, energy, character, small gestures, a man's calm confidence in person. Women relied more on intuition and observation over time. It wasn't a one look and she decides everything type of dynamic. A man had space to reveal who he was without rushing. A woman had time to feel something grow slowly. Attraction had room to breathe. Now, men often assume that the moment a woman doesn't show obvious excitement, she has already dismissed them forever, but that's not how women operate. If anything, modern women are more guarded at first because the world is louder, faster, and more distracting. They're exposed to more personalities, more intentions, more situations that teach them to be careful. The first reaction you see from her is rarely the full truth. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's emotional discipline. Sometimes it's simply her watching you to understand what space you stand in. And here's the part many men misunderstand. Women still fall for men the same way through emotional safety, presence, and how consistently a man makes her feel understood. That has never changed. What's changed is how quickly men expect interest to show up. A lot of men feel discouraged the second a woman isn't instantly responsive. They don't realize she might be observing something deeper. Your tone, your patience, your self-respect, the way you handle setbacks, the calmness in your voice, your stability, your energy, these things take time to reveal themselves. And women notice. Women today might seem harder to impress, but the truth is, they're simply filtering faster. Not because they're entitled or indifferent, but because they're surrounded by superficial attention every day. Messages, compliments, quick interactions, empty charm. None of that affects a woman deeply. What stays with her is the man who carries a different energy, quiet confidence, emotional steadiness, intention without pressure. This is why a woman who wasn't interested at first can suddenly see you in a new light later. She might not have felt attraction initially, but she felt something. Respect, curiosity, comfort, or simply that you weren't trying too hard. Women respond slowly to depth. They open when something feels real. And when a man understands that her first reaction isn't the final judgment, he stops giving up too early and starts showing up in a way that makes her feel safe enough to desire him. Shift the power dynamics. Shift the power dynamic without chasing. If you truly want a woman who isn't interested in you to start becoming interested, here's the first thing you must understand. Attraction doesn't spark when you try to convince her you're worthy. It sparks when she starts to notice things about you she didn't expect. And nothing shifts that faster than a sudden change in the power dynamic. Because right now, whether you admit it or not, she holds the power. She's the one deciding if she likes you. She's the one controlling the pace. She's the one you're trying to impress. And as long as she feels like she is the prize and you are the applicant, her interest will stay low. So your entire job in this phase is simple. You subtly change the frame from "I hope you like me" to "let's see if you fit into my world." This isn't about manipulation. It's about breaking the psychological pattern that made her place you in the unimportant or neutral category. Here's how you do it. You remove the pressure. She feels from you. Women can sense when you want them. They can sense when you're evaluating every detail. They can sense when you're hoping for something. The second she feels that pressure, her brain automatically dulls her interest because she feels chosen without having to earn anything. So, you remove that energy completely. You keep the conversations light. You don't compliment her appearance. You don't interrogate her texting habits. You don't initiate long paragraphs trying to bond. Instead, you become the man who has options, purpose, and focus. She's used to guys trying hard. So when you stop trying, her brain suddenly loses its sense of control. That alone creates microtension, and microtension creates curiosity. 2. You engage her on equal level, not lower, not higher. Don't act unimpressed, don't act superior, don't act like you're too good for her. Just match her energy perfectly. If she replies slow, you reply slow. If she gives one-word responses, you keep things short. If she's dry, you don't overcompensate. You let the dryness expose itself. Why? Because when you don't compensate for her lack of effort, she starts realizing she isn't leading the interaction anymore. And trust me, most women hate losing that lead role. That's when they look at their phone twice. That's when they think, wait, why isn't this guy chasing me like the others? That's when interest starts creeping in. 3. You show the one thing. She didn't expect selective attention. When a woman notices that you are pleasant, respectful, fun, but completely unpredictable in how much attention you give, she becomes extremely curious. One moment she feels like she has you figured out. The next moment, you're not available. The next moment, you're cool and relaxed again. That's the exact emotional contrast that makes a woman start paying attention. It's not about ignoring her. It's about making your attention feel earned, not given away for free. And once that shift happens, once she no longer feels like she has full power over your desire, her brain starts working differently. She starts wondering. She starts thinking about you randomly. She starts checking your stories. She starts responding faster. Not because she suddenly likes you, but because she can no longer predict you. And unpredictability is one of the strongest early catalysts for attraction. Trigger emotions. She can't ignore trigger emotions. She can't ignore. If a woman isn't interested in you yet, it means one thing. You haven't triggered the right emotion in her. A woman becomes attracted when something about you imprints on her mind. Something that makes her feel a tiny spike of excitement, curiosity, warmth, admiration, or even confusion. Attraction is emotional, not logical. So, in this phase, your goal is to create moments that plant small emotional seeds in her psychology. These seeds don't make her fall in love, but they make her pay attention. And once you have her attention, interest naturally follows. Let's break down how you do this one. Use micro-mystery instead of over-explanations. Most guys today talk too much. They overshare, they try to prove they're interesting, they reveal everything in one conversation. What does that do? It removes mystery, and mystery is the oxygen of attraction. Instead, you give her just enough to make her curious. She asks, "So, what do you do?" You say, "A little bit of everything." "I'll tell you the fun parts later." She asks, "Why weren't you online last night?" You say, "Long story. I'll explain when we talk." She asks about your plans. You mention something slightly interesting, but don't give the full breakdown. This creates a psychological gap. Her brain will try to fill in that gap by thinking about you more often. And once you live in her head, even in small doses, interest begins. 2. Create one signature trait. She can associate you with every woman remembers people through emotional tags. Maybe she remembers a guy because he was funny, another because he was bold, another because he was mysterious, another because he was calm. You need a signature emotional vibe she can attach to you. Not a persona, not an act, just a consistent feeling she gets whenever she interacts with you. For example, maybe you're always calm and collected, maybe you're subtly playful and teasing, maybe you're the quiet but confident type, maybe you're the guy who's always doing unexpected little things. This consistency creates familiarity, not boring familiarity, but emotional familiarity. Once she knows how you make her feel, her brain starts craving that feeling again. That is how interest builds quietly without her even noticing. 3. Don't mirror her lack of effort. Mirror her energy, then elevate it slightly. In section 3, you matched her energy to reset the power dynamic, but now you elevate it just a little. If she's short but polite, you respond short but playful. If she's dry but civil, you add a drop of humor. If she's slow but consistent, you stay slow but warm. This does 2 things. A. It shows emotional intelligence. B. It makes her feel good without making her feel chased. And that balance is rare. Most guys either chase too much or go cold to look mysterious. You're doing neither. You're creating emotional movement. You're giving her tiny positive feelings in a controlled way. And trust me, controlled positivity is extremely attractive. 4. Use one strategic compliment, but only after she shows slight interest. Women are used to compliments. They hear them all day. But a compliment at the right moment hits differently. Not in the beginning, not when she's uninterested, not when you're trying to win her. You wait. You let her warm up slightly. You let her initiate a little more. You let her respond faster. Then, in a relaxed moment, you drop one well-placed compliment, preferably not about her looks. Something like, "You know what? I noticed you have a really calming vibe. It's rare." Or, "You're actually more interesting than I first thought." Why does this work? Because now she feels like she earned it. It hits her emotionally. Her brain logs it as something meaningful, not needy, and it increases her desire to impress you more. This entire phase is about planting mental fingerprints. Not heavy effort, not dramatic gestures, just consistent, subtle, emotional impressions she can't shake off. That's how you turn a woman who wasn't interested into a woman who suddenly starts seeing you differently. Build tension. Build subtle tension. Attraction becomes powerful when there's a gentle tension between you and a woman. Something she can feel but can't fully explain. It's the energy that makes her glance twice, wonder what you're thinking, and pay closer attention to you than she planned. Not because you're forcing her to, but because the way you carry yourself draws her in without effort. This kind of tension begins when you move through interactions at your own pace. Most men rush the moment they sense even a small opening, and that destroys the spark immediately. When you stay calm, still warm, still engaged but unbothered, she naturally starts syncing with your rhythm. Women subconsciously follow the emotional pace of the man they're with. So, when your vibe stays steady, grounded, and relaxed, her interest quietly begins to rise. She'll lean into the energy you set without even realizing it. Another piece of this tension comes from the way you use silence. A lot of men panic when there's a pause because they think silence equals rejection. It doesn't. Women actually feel more drawn to men who can hold quiet moments without losing confidence. If she says something meaningful and you take a breath before responding, it shows depth. If you're mid-conversation and you slow down on certain words, she tunes in more closely. That softness in the space between your words, when used, naturally creates a magnetic pull because it signals emotional steadiness. There's also a kind of playful friction that makes interactions come alive. Not the sarcastic cold teasing that makes a woman shut down, but the type that brings a hint of challenge. When she's trying too hard to be serious and you lighten her mood just a little, she feels comfortable. When she's trying to impress you and you respond with a warm, curious smile instead of instant approval, she feels intrigued. That simple shift keeps her guessing in a good way and attracts her on a deeper level. Tension also grows when your standards reveal themselves. When a woman realizes you're not easily moved, not easily impressed, and not desperate for her attention, she starts viewing you differently. You're not a man trying to win her approval. You're a man with a life, a pace, a mindset she has to adjust to. And women lean toward men who move with that kind of quiet certainty. All of these small shifts blend together into one powerful feeling for her. Something about you feels different, more grounded, more masculine, more controlled. And even if she wasn't interested at first, that tension begins to work on her slowly, quietly, but undeniably. Spark curiosity, wake her curiosity without losing yourself. There's a moment in every interaction where a woman looks at a man and silently asks herself, "Who is he really?" Most men don't realize how important that moment is, and many ruin it without even noticing. They either over-explain themselves, trying too hard to look impressive, or they become overly available, giving her everything up front, every thought, every detail, every intention. And when a man does that, he kills the very thing that could have drawn her toward him. Mystery, not the fake, forced kind, the natural kind that comes from a man who knows who he is and doesn't need to convince anyone. If you want to shift a woman from disinterest to attraction, you have to understand that curiosity is one of the deepest psychological triggers in feminine desire. When a woman feels like there is more to you than what she sees on the surface, her mind becomes active. She starts observing you more, she starts wondering, she starts paying attention to things she ignored before. And that shift doesn't require manipulation. It requires self-awareness. A lot of men make the mistake of thinking vulnerability means unloading their whole life story. But real vulnerability is showing pieces of yourself slowly in moments that feel natural. When your emotional world comes out in small, genuine fragments, she feels like she's discovering you. Women love to discover. They love to peel layers. But that only happens when the man leaves a little space for her to explore. Curiosity also grows when you stop centering your whole identity around her reaction. Many men give away their power because they want a woman to like them so desperately that they shapeshift into whatever they think she needs. But a woman is not attracted to a man who bends to fit in her hands. She's attracted to a man who stands firmly enough that she has to shift a little to understand him. That subtle difference changes everything. And here's where the criticism comes in. Too many men talk themselves out of opportunities because they act like they're interviewing for a position in her life. They approach with eagerness instead of composure. They respond with urgency instead of calm. They give reassurance before it's even needed. Then they wonder why she loses interest. They women feel attraction toward men who move at their own pace, not hers. When she notices that your world doesn't stop because she entered it, her curiosity spikes. She starts wondering what you do when you're not around her. She starts imagining you in different scenarios. She starts thinking about you when she's supposed to be focused on other things. And once a woman begins imagining you, you're no longer a stranger trying to win her interest. You're a man living rentrée in the back of her mind, exactly where desire control the way she sees you begins. Trigger the shift from, I don't see him like that, to why am I thinking about him? There's a quiet turning point in a woman's mind that most men never notice. It doesn't happen when you impress her or when you try to win her or when you shower her with attention. It happens when something about you disrupts the way she originally categorized you. Every woman, consciously or not, places a man in a mental box the moment she meets him. Potential friend, background character. Not my type. But what she rarely expects is for a man to evolve in front of her eyes calmly, consistently, without trying to prove anything. And when that happens, when your presence shifts even slightly, her entire perception shifts with it. Attraction often doesn't appear out of nowhere. It arises when her original assumptions about you become outdated. This shift begins when she feels something from you that doesn't match the version of you she created in her head. Maybe she thought you were predictable, and then you say something that reveals depth. Maybe she assumed you were overly eager, and then you show patience she wasn't expecting. Maybe she thought you were passive, and then she sees you handle a situation with quiet assertiveness. Women notice these things deeply, not because they're judging you, but because feminine psychology is wired to read subtle signals. The moment you stop fitting into the box she put you in, she begins observing you more intentionally. Her mind becomes curious, not because you tried harder, but because you surprised her without forcing it. What truly changes her interest is your consistency, not perfection, not a performance. Consistency. When your energy stays steady over time, when your emotional presence remains calm no matter what she does, when your attention doesn't vanish but also doesn't cling, she starts to feel something she didn't feel before. Safety. Not the soft, friendly kind of safety, masculine safety, the kind that makes her body relax and her guard lower without her permission. And here's the truth. Most men don't want to accept. A woman doesn't fall for a man because he convinces her to. She falls because she feels something around him that she doesn't feel with anyone else. That might be emotional peace. It might be playfulness. It might be mystery. Or it might be the way he sees her. Not as a prize, not as an escape, not as a fantasy, but as a person. When a woman starts thinking about you after the conversation ends, when she repels something you said because it felt different, when she wonders why your energy stayed with her longer than expected, that's when attraction is born. Not from effort, not from pressure, but from presence. Women don't fall for men who chase them. They fall for men who make them feel something they can't shake off. And if she wasn't interested before, this is the stage where that begins to change. All on its own. Attraction is never as outro simple as people try to make it. A woman doesn't fall for a man because he uses the right line, or because he plays the perfect strategy, or because he tries harder than everyone else. She falls for the man who makes her feel something she didn't expect. And here's the part many men refuse to hear. Sometimes the reason she wasn't interested in the beginning was because you weren't showing the version of yourself she could respect. That's the uncomfortable truth. But it's also the empowering one. Because the moment you stop chasing external validation, the moment you stop performing, the moment you stop bending yourself into shapes for approval, you become the kind of man a woman pays attention to. Not because you forced her interest, but because your presence changed the atmosphere around you. And if you take one thing from this entire video, let it be this. A woman might not choose you at first, but she will always feel drawn to a man who chooses himself. Self-respect is the real magnet. Emotional stability is the quiet power. Consistency is the advantage most men overlook. And yes, some women will disagree with everything I've said today, but that's fine. Truth doesn't need universal approval to be true. To my viewers, especially the men who come here because they want to grow, not just complain, I appreciate you. I see you. I want you to keep showing up for yourselves. Tell me in the comments what part of this video hit you the hardest, and I'll respond personally. I want this community to feel like a place where we learn together, not where you sit and listen alone. And before you go, be prepared for the next video. Let's just say there's something women do when they're emotionally done with a man, and almost no man knows how to spot it in time.